The WNBA Draft is upon us in around 3 days, to be exact. And I've got Sabreena Merchant of The Athletic here to break down what's been swirling around the rumor mill about what to expect this coming Monday night. Between the two of us, we've spoken to around 12 WNBA talent evaluators, and we have a good sense about how this draft could shake out. Emphasis on the could there. The Locked On Women's Basketball Podcast. It starts right now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
Good! You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hello and welcome. You are locked onto women's basketball. I'm Jackie Powell, and I am one of your hosts on this program, usually on Fridays. I cover the New York Liberty at the Next, and I've covered women's basketball nationally at many other places. We would like to thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by everyone at the Next, a place where we cover women's basketball all the time, and we tell the stories that need to be told each and every day. Subscribe now to support the staff at the Next that works oh so hard to bring you this coverage that matters oh so much. $9 a month, $72 per year. Find us at thenexthoops.com and subscribe. Remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Last time we were together, dear listener, I had Cameron Ruby on and we previewed the Sweet 16. We obsessed over the region of doom, Albany too, and spoke about the Pac-12 representation in the Sweet 16. Rest in peace to the Pac-12. But now that South Carolina officially went undefeated and became national champions, Sabreena is here to help shift the focus to the WNBA draft. We're going to share with you what we've heard around the league and who could be doing what. So think about this podcast like it's two reporters breaking down the latest and most juicy celebrity gossip. But instead, this is the WNBA draft. So it's the GMs, it's the prospects, and not what Beyonce and Emma Stone are doing at this very moment. So anyway, segment one, we're going to talk about why the lottery might not shake out in the way that we've all thought. In segment two, we'll be dedicated to the Bayou Barbie herself, Angel Reese, and her draft prospects. And then in segment three, we're going to discuss our predictions and maybe some unexpected surprises. But anyway, Sabreena, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start with why this lottery could get a little funky.
Yeah, I think we should sort of set the baseline, right? Coming into the tournament, I would say that Cameron Brink was pretty much lauded as the second best player in this draft, especially once Paige Bueckers announced that she would be returning to UConn. And then you had Rickea Jackson sort of right under that, top two, top three. And, Cameron didn't exactly have the best showing during the NCAA tournament. I think it has been, frankly, a little overstated how, disappointing she was. I thought it was way more a function of the Stanford guards letting her down than it was actually Cam. But, let's suffice to say she fouled out of 2 consecutive games and said F you to either a ref or somebody on the way out of one of those games. So it wasn't, a shining performance leading her into her WNBA career. I think that's fair to say. And then on the other end, you have Camila Cardoso, who, to be fair, did get ejected from a game and suspended for the first game of the tournament for an altercation during the finals of the SEC tournament. So it's not like there are no character flags there. But then she proceeds to have this outstanding tournament run that culminates in a most outstanding player at the NCAA Final Four as South Carolina completes the undefeated season en route to its third national championship. And Camila Cardoso is the focal point of everything they do on both ends of the floor. Like, you could talk about the Gamecocks' depth ad nauseum. Offense, defense, everything runs through her. And she had just a really excellent 5 games of the tournament because, again, was suspended for one of those. So you have just an upward trajectory for Camila, a little bit of a downward for Cameron. And then Rikia, well, we haven't seen her play since the round of 32. And I mean, Rikia Jackson isn't always at her best every game, right? Like, when she's at her best, maybe she's the second best player in this draft after Caitlin Clark. Like, I heard that a lot from people who said, she's my number 2 player, definitely number 2 scorer. If I had the number 2 pick, I would take her. And yet, so I guess I'm giving away the fact that it wasn't the LA Sparks who said that. If I had the number 2 pick, I would take her. But somebody else said that. So yeah, there's just like, different momentum for all 3 of these. And I think what we're seeing is just a lot of hype for Cardoso to the point where she could go 2 or 3. A little bit souring on Brink, which I want to point out that I am completely opposed to. I think it is an overcorrection. I think she is solidly the second best player in this draft, second highest ceiling, does so many very cool things on a basketball court. Her defensive versatility is awesome. I'll stop gushing about her now. It might scream as Pac-12 bias, but yeah, I think a shuffling of those 2 bigs along with just an evaluation on what we make of Rikia Jackson's just locker room vibe, motor, such. Like, I mean, I think it's worth noting that she had an unexplained indefinite suspension last year at Tennessee. She missed 2 games. There's, just some questions about the general day-to-day fire that Rikia Jackson brings. So all of those things combined to, shake up the order of what we thought was pretty set coming into March.
Absolutely. And I think when we take a look at this, you mentioned that we sort of have these narratives of recency bias versus a large body of work. And so that's sort of the case when you're looking at Brink and Cardoso. And so, but I can say that I've heard around the league that even before the NCAA tournament, Chicago has had their eye on Camila Cardoso. They were floating potentially taking her 3rd. And so I just wonder, does her performance solidify those thoughts? And that could be a huge possibility. I mean, when you think about what Cardoso can bring to an organization, she brings a whole swath of South Carolina fans who, when one of their players goes to a WNBA team, they sort of follow suit. I mean, they may not physically travel to Chicago, but they're going to be paying attention. They're going to be watching. They're going to be talking about her. And so you have a franchise in Chicago that's sort of looking at rebuilding, although they don't like to use that word, but that's what they're doing. And so how do you get more fans to a franchise that's starting over? You draft someone who can help you drive buzz and get you there. So what's so interesting though, Sabreena, is that you and I were just on this draft call with ESPN analysts, Rebecca Lobo and Andrea Carter. And then there were 3 GMs. And so Lobo had a very interesting answer to this funkiness that we've got going on in the lottery. And so I just want to tell the listeners what she had to say. And so she said, I think Cameron Brink is going to go 2, but I wouldn't be shocked if Cardoso went 2. And I think that's part of what you have to put the pieces into, the Jenga game or the puzzle or however that plays out. If you think, all right, Chicago is not going to take Brink at 3, but they might take Cardozo at 3. Then you roll the dice and you say, I'm going to take Cardozo at 2 and assume they don't take Brink at 3, and then I can get her at 4. Do I think Brink is going to go second? Yes, but I would not be shocked if there's that kind of stuff at play. Oh boy.
Yeah. So my first question to you, Jackie, actually, and I know you're the interviewer here, but assuming, like, let's say the Sparks do engage in these shenanigans and go Cardozo at 2 with the hopes of also getting Brink at 4, who fills in at 3 for Chicago then?
That is a great question.
Because I think they still like Brink better than anybody else there. But
so my understanding of that is, and I'm just going to pull up my own mock, which I'm going to be attaching Sabreena's latest mocks, the chatter from the GMs at The Athletic, in addition to my own mock, and the next draft board. So you all can look at all of these resources either as you're listening or after. When it comes to Chicago, they could do, I think, 2 things. I mean, they could select Rickea Jackson because there's a belief that since their head coach is Teresa Weatherspoon, you know, Rickea Jackson and working on her motor and her will and her want to, you know, those are strengths of Teresa Weatherspoon's when it comes to coaching. So they could go with that because Rickea Jackson is a 3-level scorer. She is someone who plays so well in space. I could also see them taking Angel Reese 3rd, which I do happen to know there is interest in Angel Reese on the side of the Chicago Sky. And I think there's a similar thought here, which is wherever Angel Reese goes, people are going to pay attention to her. People are going to follow her. And so again, organization is thinking, okay, how do we start over? How do we get some buzz? That's someone who they can draft.
yeah, I also, I don't know, I just wonder about Cardozo's future as the WNBA embraces more of a pace and space type of system. You know, like right now she makes a lot of sense in the WNBA, but does it continue to make sense that Cardozo will be a star in the WNBA, like as this league continues? Like, I mean, we saw the Aces win a title with like a lot of emphasis on a small ball lineup, right? With Alicia Clark and Asia Wilson as your nominal front court players. So yeah, I'm curious to see if this is something that GMs have expressed, is if the evolution of the league makes it more challenging for Camila Cardozo to remain relevant. But for now, definitely for now, she is an outstanding center, the best true center, I would say, in the draft, because I think Brink and Reese project more as power forwards. And yeah, I mean, just an outstanding tournament run. Like everything that is coming to Camila Cardozo, she has played her way into it. She deserves all of the light coming her way.
Coming up, we are going to get into the lack of consensus around Angel Reese, what talent evaluators have been saying around the league about her. Although Sabreena and I seem to have some sort of consensus about where Angel is going to go. But first, I do want to remind y'all all about our friends at Stitch Fix. So for those of you who do not know what Stitch Fix is, it is a organization that sends you clothes. So you know that instant confidence boost that you get from an outfit that makes you look really good. For instance, what am I going to be needing for the WNBA draft this coming Monday night in Brooklyn? Obviously something very stylish and chic. But that's what I get with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a pro stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want, and no subscription is required. I know Fabletics has a subscription, and that can get annoying. Anyway, Stitch Fix helps me save time and effort, plus the outfits make me feel good and confident. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. I also want to remind you all about our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors helps you find your guaranteed fit for your ride every time or your money back. With over 122 parts for your ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's so easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay guaranteed fit, available only to U.S. customers. And back to the program we go. Our second segment is dedicated to the Bayou Barbie, Angel Reese, although she probably won't be going by that nickname very soon because she will not be playing in the Bayou anymore. So, Sabreena, what exactly are the reasons why there isn't really a consensus when it comes to projecting Angel? I know in the anonymous WNBA GM scouting piece that you and Ben Pickman wrote, you have a quote that says, "Angel is a bit of an enigma." So why?
Okay, well, first things first, I think winning a title at LSU enables you to, for the rest of life, use the nickname Bayou Barbie. So we'll stick with that. I know she was not able to get it trademarked. I wonder if the success of the Barbie movie had something to do with that or if it was just a Mattel situation, but for another day. I would say the thing with Angel Reese is she plays center at LSU. And that means she's at the basket, attacking the glass, finishing right at the basket. She doesn't really have much of a perimeter game, doesn't have an elbow jumper or anything like that. She's only effective on offense when she is right up at the rim. And when you are 6'3", I believe is what Angel is listed as, that's just not big enough to be a center in the WNBA. She's going to have to expand her skill set outwards. So I think that's part of the enigma where she is highly productive at what she does. I wouldn't say highly efficient because a lot of her scoring comes off of getting her own offensive rebounds. And she's a great rebounder. Probably her best skill is her rebounding. But it's a question of how the production is going to translate when her physical gifts are not enough to give her an advantage over WNBA athletes at the same level, right? So, will she be able to succeed as a power forward or will she have to just be an undersized center? I think that's part of the enigma. Part of it is, well, she is maybe the most famous athlete in college sports outside of Caitlin Clark. And that brings along a lot with it, right? There is a lot to the Angel Reese business. And I know that there are some in the league who worry about that. Whether that's fair or not, that's not for me to judge. I personally think it is a little unfair. I think Angel Reese being a business into of herself is a great thing, frankly, and will do wonders for whatever franchise she ends up going to. But I think those are the main beats of it, right? One is she's playing out of position in college, and two, there's just a lot to Angel Reese that comes off the court too, and that makes it challenging to evaluate her because, what role is she going to fit at your organization, and is it okay when you're rookie coming in is already more famous than everybody else on your team when she's probably not better than everybody else on your team.
And something to think about there is, how will she do when it comes to accepting a role that may be less than what she had in college and presumably will be. What I found fascinating about Angel's announcement in Vogue, that fabulous. I smiled so wide when I saw that. What stood out to me in that spread in Vogue was how she essentially understands how talented WNBA players are and how she knows that she's starting from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that I did not think that she would either understand or internalize. And the fact that she was able to say that publicly in one of the most public magazines and well-known magazines in the world, that says something to me. While we know Angel Reese as the trash-talking, very vivacious athlete on the court, she does have an element of humility here when it comes to the talent level that she's going to be playing against and alongside. And that wasn't something that I knew. And I don't think that that's something that other talent evaluators knew about as well. And I also find that the caginess of Kim Mulkey during that November period of time when Angel Reese took her absence from the team, the way that was handled didn't do Angel any favors at all. The mystery behind it, that's something that many talent evaluators still have in their minds. Probably a bunch of them have been asking her privately during pre-draft interviews about that situation. But that's something that definitely made some GMs and talent evaluators question if they should draft her or not. So, Sabreena, I want to ask you, though, why on your mock did you put her going to Minnesota at 7? Because that's a spot where we both had the same exact person there.
Couple of reasons. I think at that point she is pretty obviously the most talented player left. I don't know if talented is the right word to use because Alyssa Peely is supremely talented. I just think her fit is going to be so challenging to place on a WNBA roster, and I didn't think that Minnesota was the right place for her. But just one, I think she works hard. Like, she plays really hard on both ends of the floor. That's what I appreciate most about Angel Reese is how hot her motor runs. And I think that's important when you're playing for a coach like Cheryl Reeve, that you're never going to take possessions off. You have to be working all the time. And Minnesota was just a terrible rebounding team last year. And I love Angel Reese as a rebounder. So there's an immediate skill that you can contribute and add value to your team right away. So part of it is, selfishly, I would like to see Angel Reese go to Minnesota. I think that would do wonders for her in terms of a development perspective. And then I think Minnesota benefits from her skill set right away, and that allows her an opportunity to work on the things that will make her better.
So as I said before, I also project Angel going 7th and going to the Minnesota Lynx. And I think Angel Reese and the Lynx could potentially have this very symbiotic relationship. And what I mean by that is this. So as you just pointed out correctly, the Lynx need rebounding. And Cheryl Reeve is someone who values rebounding. She has spoken ad nauseum about rebounding the basketball and how during the Lynx's golden years, what they did so well via Rebecca Brunson, of course, one of the best rebounders ever, was rebounding the basketball at a high level. So that's part one. Part two is that the Lynx are in a really interesting spot right now where their ceiling as a franchise has sort of come down to sort of like that perennial playoff team that sort of makes it as one of the, the 7, 8, 6 seeds. And, Angel Reese has the ability to take that team that's in a less flashy market. Minnesota is not the New York or Vegas of the country, obviously. She's the opportunity to put a lot of attention on the Minnesota Lynx and quickly. Cheryl Reeve was quoted earlier this year when talking about her new free agents joining the Lynx in Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, and Natisha Heidemann, who they got in a trade. And she flat out said to a bunch of media members that people don't remember that it was the Minnesota Lynx that were doing this first, that were treating their players well first, and that, we seem to be forgotten about in the super team era. Well, when you add Angel Reese to your roster, you are easily going to get so much attention as a franchise. So much attention. So I think it benefits both parties here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. Like that's spot on. It's a good point about Minnesota. I mean, I think they noticed last year that their free agency pitches, and when I say last year, I mean during the 2023 offseason. So like the Stewie, taking meetings and emojis and yada yada yada. I think they noticed that their tier, in terms of like desirability was a little bit lower than you might expect for a team that has the historical success of the Lynx. And it's not just historical success. Cheryl Reeve is still a part of that team. Like there are connections to the team that won 4 championships. So yeah, maybe they have to go about things a little bit differently, but that's why you go for somebody like Angel Reese, who like is going to fall later than you might expect based on her celebrity, based on her marketability and production at the college level, just because of those position concerns, of, potential off the court concerns with that suspension earlier. Was it characterized as a suspension from LSU? I don't know. Whatever caused her to sit out those 4 games for LSU. And that's exactly the kind of player that Minnesota swoops in and, makes everybody look really silly for waiting 6 picks to take.
Just like Nafisa Collier, although they picked her at 6, but same sort of like mid-first round type of spot. So coming up in our final segment, Sabreena and I will preview the draft and go into what we think could surprise us. And of course, when we talk about surprises, that starts with the Dallas Wings. But first, I do want to remind our listeners all about our friends at FanDuel. So as we know, it's playoff time almost in the NBA and the NHL, and Major League Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, 3-pointers, you name it, all on an app that is safe, secure, and quite easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Alrighty, and we are back. It is time to get into our draft surprises, and obviously we need to talk about the Dallas Wings. What are the Dallas Wings going to do with their first round picks? And they have 2 of them.
Yeah. I think when you talk about teams that have given us the most surprises over the course of recent draft memory, Indiana, #1 on that list, but let's just put that out there. They will not be surprising us this year. No way for Indiana to surprise us in 2024. But even just thinking back to last year, Dallas has that number 5 pick. They end up taking Lou Lopez Seneschal, I think well above where most people thought she was going to be drafted. Not only that, then they also trade into the number 4 pick to take Stephanie Suarez, giving up a 2025 pick in the process, 2025, which is expected to be this super draft because we're getting everybody from the COVID years out and normal senior class. So it's going to be like this double jumbo draft to do that, to take, again, Stephanie Suarez, who we have not seen play yet. So this is not a indictment on Stephanie's ability by any means, but just an odd choice. So when you think about the teams that could really surprise us, this year, I think you have to start with the Wings, mostly because they have the 2 picks, and there's just less of a consensus at 5 and 9 than there is at 2 and 4, for example. We once again head into a draft where the Dallas Wings need a point guard, and I don't know that they can accomplish that goal from this particular class. There's no more Georgia Amore in this class. There's no real dominant point guard outside of Caitlin Clark, and they're not getting Caitlin Clark. So it opens the door for them to do a lot of things. Do they stash? They have a very full roster as is. I don't know how 2 picks are going to be making their opening day roster. I'm going to put that another way. I don't think 2 picks are going to be making their opening day roster. So they have to be a little more forward thinking. Maybe that, ends up with them taking Liz Kitley at 9 or something, somebody who they could rehab for a year and then bring into their system next year. Maybe that leads to them looking at an international like Layla Khan, Carla Leite, right? Poch from Australia, all potential suggestions here. If I had an answer for what Dallas was going to do, they wouldn't be a surprise, right? I have them taking JC Sheldon. I don't expect them to take JC Sheldon. I think it makes a lot of sense, and thus I don't think it's going to happen. But for now, I think that's I think 4 or 5 is where this draft could really turn. And we've talked already about the lottery, how it might not go how everyone is expecting. But yeah, I think at 5, that's where I'm going to be sitting up, making sure that I haven't rewound by accident. I'm fully live watching the draft special and knowing what's going to happen here with the Wings, because it's hopefully it's a stunner. Really, I hope it's a stunner.
So when it comes to the Dallas Wings, I happen to know who they have their eyes on. And so we mentioned Rickea Jackson being someone who could fall in this draft because of potential motor issues, personality, questions. And so when you think about Rickea Jackson's skill set, and when you think about Dallas, you're probably thinking, oh my God, the Wings don't need more bigs. They don't need more big wings. Why are they doing this? Well, first of all, Dallas loves bigs. Greg Bibb just loves having a lot of bigs. He likes his team to be a very big and long team. That's something that is a pattern that has carried through his tenure as the GM. But also, Satu Sabali is uncertain when it comes to the Wings, when it comes to how much time she's going to be able to be healthy and available for. We're not just talking about the 2024 Olympics. We're just talking about the fact that she got shoulder surgery in February. And there is an uncertainty about if she's going to be ready for training camp, how much she's going to play before the Olympic break. So with Rickea Jackson, who people are calling a 3-4 big wing, that's someone who can slide into Satu's spot and someone who can provide you immediate scoring from almost anywhere, similar to Satu. I mean, their games are not exactly the same, but when it comes to needing production out of a small forward, the shoe sort of fits. So I can tell you all listeners that the Dallas Wings are very interested in Rickea Jackson. And if she fell to them, they would be smiling oh so wide.
I hope that doesn't happen for Rickea, just because you look at her numbers at Tennessee and she was always so much more efficient offensively when Tamari Key wasn't on the court. And I look at Dallas, and there will always be a big center on the court when Rickea Jackson is playing. So I don't love the stylistic fit, but everything you said about, wanting a big wing, the way Dallas has prioritized its roster construction makes sense in terms of why they would value her so highly.
When it comes to Dallas at 9, though, I mean, I think the whole point guard thing is definitely the way to go. They just need some more shooting out of the point guard spot. And they need a little bit more size out of the point guard spot. And essentially, there are 2 main nominees I have on my mock Or actually, no, I have Nika Mule going 9, but I could also see Carla Leite going 9 as well. Because Greg Bibb, during the draft call, he spoke about how much he really respects Leite's game. He said, I think she is really strong in terms of seeing the court and making the right pass. I think she has moxie confidence, which you need at the position. But I mean, Nika Mule to me fits as well because we know Latricia Trammell and her defensive acumen. Nika Mule is also, is she 5'11" or 6 foot? That's a little bit more size.
Yeah, she's listed at, I believe, 5'10", but she looks bigger. Like, she doesn't look much smaller than Paige. Yeah.
So, obviously, they still need shooting, but my understanding is it will be very hard for them to get said shooting in this first round.
Yeah, and just with, again, their roster crunch, I'm looking at their salary cap sheet on Her Hoop Stats. They already have their 5 protected contracts, plus you have Veronica Burton, Stephanie Suarez, Crystal Dangerfield, Maddie Siegrist, Lou Lopez Seneschal. Odyssey Sims has been in all of their offseason socials. She's not currently signed to the team. So that's another 6 players, right? How are they going to add another 2? I don't see that happening, which is why I really think that number 9 is going to be a stash.
It could be Carla Leite. I could see it happening. I could see it absolutely happening. Well, that is our show. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. I want to give a huge thank you to Sabreena Merchant for hopping on the show and making me feel like maybe we were on the set of E! News. I don't know. Where should people find and follow your work, Sabreena?
Visit theathletic.com, go to the WNBA page or the NCAAW page for all things women's basketball, and listen to the Athletic Women's Basketball Podcast. That's where I am.
Absolutely. And remember, Locked On has launched its first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It is Locked On Sports Today. It is here for you. And join tomorrow, Em Adler, Hunter Cruz, and Lincoln Schaefer. They are going to be talking about the draft, but in a different way. They are breaking down their big board, where they're not looking at team fit and they're not listening to WNBA gossip, but it is very much so worth reading and taking in. Anyway, this has been Jackie Powell and
Sabreena Merchant.
And we are signing off. Have a wonderful weekend and happy almost WNBA draft.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.